Semi-trucks are so inefficient they'd bankrupt a regular driver, but that's exactly why they dominate freight. Here's what most people miss: 6 miles per gallon sounds catastrophic until you do the math on what's actually moving. A loaded semi-truck carries 80,000 pounds of cargo. A Toyota Camry gets 30 miles per gallon but only moves 3,500 pounds total weight. Work out the cargo per gallon and the semi-truck moves roughly 13,000 pounds per gallon while the Camry moves only 117. That's not even close. The semi is over 100 times more efficient at moving actual stuff. You could drive 5 Camrys across the country and still move less freight than one truck doing it once. 6 MPG isn't a failure. It's the price of scale. Here's what most people get wrong: they assume truck engineers are lazy or incompetent. They're not. A semi-truck manufacturer could absolutely engineer a rig that achieves 8 miles per gallon instead of 6. They could add lightweight materials, streamline the cab, reduce wind resistance. But they don't. And the reason is brutally simple math. A semi-truck's job isn't to be fuel efficient. Its job is to move cargo. Every engineering decision reflects that priority. Consider this concrete example: suppose an engineer redesigns a truck to shed 5,000 pounds and gain 2 additional miles per gallon. Sounds like progress, right? Wrong. Those 5,000 pounds represent cargo capacity. At current freight rates, losing that payload means the company loses roughly $3,000 to $4,000 per cross-country run. Meanwhile, the 2 miles per gallon improvement saves maybe $200 in fuel across that same route. The math is merciless. You sacrifice thousands in revenue to save hundreds in fuel. So the truck stays heavy. The engine prioritizes raw torque to handle that weight, not aerodynamic efficiency. This isn't poor design. It's perfect design for the actual problem being solved. The industry long ago figured out that payload matters infinitely more than sipping fuel. Here's where the psychology gets interesting. Trucking companies don't think like you think about your car. You want better MPG because fuel is your second largest expense. A fleet manager thinks differently. Their entire business model is built on one principle: move as much tonnage as possible per route. That's it. Everything else cascades from that single obsession. Consider what happens if a company redesigns an engine to squeeze out 8 miles per gallon instead of 6. Sounds great, right? Except that engine is lighter, which means the truck can carry more payload. But wait, the company already maxes out at 80,000 pounds because of legal weight limits. So that efficiency gain? It's worthless. It doesn't translate to more revenue per trip. Instead, fleet managers pour money into driver training programs, GPS route optimization, and load consolidation software. These things directly impact how many tons move per week, which directly impacts profit. A driver who learns to coast downhill saves maybe 2% fuel. A dispatcher who combines 2 half-full shipments into one trip saves 50% of a truck's operating cost for that route. The mindset isn't about fuel economy. It's about utilization. That's why 6 miles per gallon persists. It's not a bug in trucking, it's a feature of their economic model. Here's where the math gets brutal. Everyone assumes fuel is the biggest expense for trucking companies. It's not even close. Fuel only represents 30 to 40% of operating costs. That means 70% of what a company spends comes from somewhere else entirely. Labor is the monster. Driver wages, benefits, payroll taxes, that's the single largest line item on any fleet's budget. Then comes maintenance. Tires alone cost thousands per truck annually. Transmission fluid, brake pads, engine overhauls. Equipment. Depreciation is another killer. A new semi costs $80,000 to $130,000, and it loses value every single day. Now imagine this scenario. An engineer designs a revolutionary engine that achieves 8 miles per gallon instead of 6. A 33% improvement. Sounds revolutionary, right? For a truck running 50,000 miles yearly at $3 per gallon diesel, you save roughly $2,000 annually. But if that same company reduces driver turnover by 5% through better scheduling and pay, they save hundreds of thousands across the fleet. That's the psychological shift. Trucking companies aren't optimizing for fuel anymore. They're optimizing for labor, maintenance, and asset utilization. Everything else follows. Here's what matters: semi-trucks have held steady at roughly 6 miles per gallon for decades, not because engineers can't improve it, but because they've already solved the actual problem, maximizing profit per mile. The industry isn't broken, it's optimized. That stagnation is the signal. When something stops improving, it means the incentives have aligned perfectly with the current design. That's the real story behind those 6 miles per gallon.